Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to say that I really appreciate that I have the opportunity to cooperate in this Central European Academy project. It is my opinion that it comes in the right time, and enlargement issues are more and more relevant. And what was agreed with the boss of the project is that at this stage we should talk about the experience that we have had in our countries accessing to European Union. And I'm going to share with you some experience related to Slovenia. Slovenia and the group of 10 countries at that time, I'm talking about Central and East European countries, and Baltic countries, and in addition to this also Cyprus and Malta. Slovenia shared the destiny of this group joining the EU in 90s. And let me say that for Slovenia it was somehow controversial what chances Slovenia has to approach EU. On one side, it was likely to say that Slovenia will qualify because it has a good economic performance and so on. It was the best developed part of the former Yugoslavia. But on the other side, there were forecasts that it is a part of turbulent Balkans where wars are and conflicts, and the predictions were very bad. But let me say that something very important. Slovenian people has their aspiration to become part of European Union ever since before its independence in 2000, in 90s. Even in mid-80s, the political initiative to join Europe, to become a part of Europe, were very strong in Slovenia. The process itself, it lasted roughly 10 years. It started and began altogether. Let me say roughly. However, it was a huge and demanding task for political structures, for professionals. And the consequences were very, very extensive and deep. It was thorough reconstruction of political and economic system in Slovenia. The adoption of acquis communautaire required amendments to Constitution of Slovenia and creating radical changes in our legislative landscape. And also not just legislative framework, but also legal culture, different legal tradition. The changes that we confronted with were, as I said, very deep. Huge reform took place. They're not comparable with the countries in the group, just a part of it, because Slovenia was a federal unit, and the change was to become from being a part of federal state to a sovereign member state. And the shift from regional economy to national economy. And also, of course, that the complete transformation of the political and economic system. The Copenhagen criteria, you all know them, as I said, was a huge job for the politicians and also for professional structures. Let me add here that, yes, it is a political process. It is a political decision. But it was also a very high demanding professional process. The professional process meaning transforming the society, transforming its legal, economic, political framework. How it worked? Chapter by chapter scrutiny of 31 working fields that meant approximation to acquis communautaire. 31 professional groups were composed for certain fields, and this group were professionals that took responsibility for credible professional work. As I said, it is a political decision, but it is also a huge task for lawyers and other professionals. As you probably know, the Commission has drawn a bilateral partnership for each of the applicant countries, composing so-called pre-accession strategies. And that was priority actions, financial resources needed to enable for each applicant country to fulfill their programs, and conditions how to use the financial sources. How it worked in Slovenia in 1993, so-called cooperation agreement was signed in April 5th. And in 1996, association agreement was signed, also known as Europe Agreement, which already defined 3 important directions. First of all, political provisions which gave a ground for political reforms of political system. Trade field, which gave the ground for harmonization of market legislation and free trade, and so-called technical and financial assistance. Application of Slovenia for membership to the European Union was presented on 10th of July 1996. So the whole process formally started as application. Slovenia became an applicant country from 1996 and then to 2004 when association of joining EU was, a contract of joining EU was signed. The accession, so-called accession process was launched in 1998 when officially negotiations started, and the negotiations lasted from 1998 to 2002, so 4 years. Why I'm telling these dates? Because I want to say that this was a very, very serious process, a very profound engagement of all professional and political structures in the country. It was not an easy job. It was not something politically decided and that's it. And this is something that we have to learn for the future as well. Yes, political decisions are made for the countries upcoming, but the professional part of this approximation has also to be done. It is known that each applicant country put forward so-called national program for adoption of the acquis, NPAA. And that programs, which were individual programs for each country, put the timelines, the priorities, the details on the resources required legal adjustment necessary, and so on and so on. So the process was individualized in the terms of the steps, priorities, procedures, and so on, but it was not, I want to underline this, enough individualized regarding to taking into consideration specificities of each country. These timelines, these NPAA, were annually sort of refreshed, and Slovenia, as you see here, started 1998 and refreshed it 1999, a new version. Negotiation, as I said, 31 chapters, 10 chapters first. Let me list some of these chapters just to make an impression how broad this process and how deep was going on. Research and science, teaching and education, culture, small business, company law, consumers and health protection, customs union, external trade, relation and telecommunication, and so on and so on. And then 3 again in 1998, and additional 8 chapters in 1999, like economic and monetary union, the free movement of capitals, social and employment policy, energy, free movement of services, transport, environment, taxation policies. So all these chapters were individually discussed. From the point of view, are they in the conformity of European legal order? And the most serious negotiations started with a financial package that was in the very end, 2002, where the discussions related to contribution to the EU budget took place, and payment for the budget and for the agricultural policy, for structural and cohesion funds, and so on. National Assembly, or the parliaments, were mentioned today. Yes, it played a huge role in these processes also in Slovenia. In Slovenia it is called National Assembly, and following other parliaments, national parliaments, established Commission for European Affairs already in March 1996. And that was a commission that centrally sort of coordinate the role of Parliament in these processes. And it worked through the whole process. And in addition to that, a law was enacted after accession, which is called the Cooperation between the National Assembly and the Government in EU Affairs Act. That law regulates, with some amendments in next years, the relationship between the Parliament and the government in European affairs still nowadays. The government also organized itself, as I said, in 31 working group and national coordination group chaired by the Minister first Foreign Affairs and then Minister for European Affairs. And for each of the 31 fields, the government has accepted a special negotiating positions. And that was the basis for negotiations, which were, as I said, very, very serious and professionally demanding process. These working groups were also composed not just by the representatives of the ministries, but also from civil society, from non-governmental organizations, and also from representatives of employees, trade unions, and other interested groups. Let me give you an example how it worked, how this decision-making process on the side of European Union worked. For instance, the European Parliament, in its resolution in 1999, pointed out the following. Slovenia now had the democratic structures to safeguard the rule of law. It has a satisfactory level concerning the economic conditions. However, they said, there is a lack of progress in the field of incorporating the acquis communautaire in particularly sensitive areas like justice, home affairs, internal market, and reform of administrative and justice system is still needed. So the scrutiny, the supervision of this approximation of different chapters through negotiations were very precise, and the political supervision was all the time here. European Commission, for instance, pointed out the following. A legislative process is too slow, and there is lack of judicial capacity. They were estimating and evaluating all this field of functioning of the state. An appropriate legal framework must be created for state aid, for agriculture sector, for free movement of persons, capital and services. The legal environment for business should be more modernized. Public administrative system is not developed enough. Appropriate supervisory and regulatory bodies still have to be composed. So these were remarks, these were the comments of the European Commission telling where the upgrade of political and administrative system are to be added. And as I said earlier today, Slovenia had to amend the constitution of Republic Slovenia twice in relation to EU approximation. First, it was Article 68, which was adopted in 1997, and that related to foreigners' right to purchase and own land in Slovenia. It was at that time forbidden for foreigners to buy land in Slovenia. And that was a huge topic. By the way, Slovenia is territorially rather small country. And somebody with big pocket can buy the territory. Yes, that was a sensitive political issue, but we have decided to go with these amendments, and we have changed this early in 1997, as I said, with big discussions, of course, and conflicts and ideological battles and so on. And the second, it related to give constitutional ground that Slovenia can enter into international organizations and transfer a part of its sovereignty on such international organization. So this provision was added, was amended in the constitution, and as I said, it was agreed in the constitutional amendment process that it was an interesting discussion at that time because the political positions were of the opponents that we are a sovereign country and we will not transfer any sovereignty to anyone, even not to those, that was additional condition, to those organizations who respect human rights, who respect rule of law, freedom, democracy, and so on. That's a separate constitutional condition. And then the answer of constitutional lawyers was the following. It is not that you transfer your sovereignty. You transfer just the exercise of part of sovereignty. But you have all the sovereignty like as a state like you had before. Do you agree that the Republic of Slovenia becomes a member of European Union? That was the referendum question. So we have decided that in a referendum, and you can see the numbers there. I said close to 90%. To be exact, 89.64% of Slovenian population supported the entrance in the EU. I'm not sure if this percentage would be like this today. And yes, there is some disappointment in some structures, but at that time was, we could say, euphoria, 90%. It was also related to the other constitutional changes, to introduction of market economy, abandoning socialistic order, and so on and so on. At the same time, we have voted at the referendum also for NATO, and you see the number here is much lower. It is 66%. If we would vote referendum for NATO today, I rather not predict what would be the result. FAR program, financial assistance, you have here some numbers. It was quite substantial for Slovenia, close to 200 million euros for different types of financial support, different programs like cross-border cooperation with separately Austria, Italy, and Hungary, and so-called multi-country program. So European Union has supported the approximation process, let me say, quite substantial. Yes, exemptions. Slovenia has proposed in these negotiations 22 exemptions or transition periods and 6 derogations. 80 transitions were negotiated, not 22, but 80, and 2 derogations were agreed in the negotiations. The highest concentration of the exemptions was in most demanding negotiation chapters like agriculture and environment. And let me point out this, the highest obstacle, according to the commentators today, in the negotiations was the reason for that was that European Union approach was too horizontal for candidate countries. And we can learn something from this. It did not sufficiently take into interest the specific of some countries. And let me conclude with the following. The negotiation experience, negotiators' experience the negotiators are telling today that the most difficult part was done at home, not in communications with the European Union. It was difficult to reach consensus in some issues in the country itself. And like we've heard early in the morning from Professor Michael, he was talking about Palinka. We had similar issues, namely the most hard discussion was in the course of approaching to EU was because European Union required that Slovenia closed so-called free trade shops, free shops. You know, free shops at the airports and free shops. We had free shops at the borders, and it was a huge requirement from European Commission to close this, and that heated the discussion about approaching to European Union, because people did not have the opportunity anymore to buy cheap drinks. And that was one, and the other one was that already mentioned, namely the rule that enabled foreigners to purchase land in Slovenia. There were two today very unimportant issues that heated the discussion on the European approach of Slovenia. Let me conclude with just the following. I think that the issue of professionalism in this political process is very important and gives credibility to such processes. And the second, the issue of individual approach, and now confronting with upcoming countries, we have to take into consideration that they will pass all these difficult stages, that it will not happen in 2 years or even before, not adapting to the whole legal and economic system and political system to European standards. That's it. Thank you very much for your